Welcome to Busted Speakers, I'm Cam.
I'm Alex.
And today we're reviewing the 8th studio album by Norah Jones, Pick Me Up Off the Floor. This album is made of leftover tracks from recording sessions that she had throughout 2018, which resulted in her previous mini-album, EP, whatever you want to call it, Begin Again. She'd been releasing singles throughout the year, and decided to round those up into that album, and these tracks are others that she had recorded during that time, but just recently decided that they worked well enough together that they deserved a release of their own. And for what it's worth, I think she was completely right. I think that this is a great set of songs here.
Yeah, I'm definitely in total agreement there. This is a pretty above average for Norah Jones, which is still really good set of songs here. If you're talking like change from album, there's no point even putting that into the discussion with her. Aspects of what made her good back in, was it 2002, her first album?
I think so.
Yeah, Come Away With Me, which is the only other one I've heard. I think I sampled a bit of Begin Again, and I will say the material from Pick Me Up Off the Floor is notably a little bit stronger in my opinion. You know, for the better part of 20 years she's been, in a roundabout way, maybe divulging into more country or singer-songwriter different points, giving us more of the same, and this is more of the same, and I actually think it's maybe even stronger. Maybe she's even improved herself as an artist, I don't know. I don't know her stuff as well as you, Cam, but for my ears there's a definite improvement from her first album to this, in my mind. Very good stuff.
Yeah, and I haven't even heard everything. I've got almost like every other album for a little bit, and I don't have either of her previous two. I also have Featuring, which is a compilation of songs that either she had guest artists on or that she was the guest artist on. Everyone from, you got Foo Fighters, Outkast, Willie Nelson, Q-Tip, Belle and Sebastian, Ray Charles is probably the centerpiece of that album.
Damn, she's worked with a lot of people.
Yeah, and she's never been afraid to expand beyond what people have called the, like, Starbucks stereotype of her early work.
Yeah.
Just, being very pleasant, loungy, background music.
Which is still very true for this album, but I feel like this is the strongest, richest set of songs she's put out that I can think of. I mean, these songs are so much more refined and richer than before. I've heard some people saying, like, obviously she was in her early 20s when she began. She sounded beyond her years. Now she sounds like of her years. She sounds like the actual age you'd think someone who was making this music would be, right?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
I mean, is this jazz pop? Do you need more in that style rather than it just being her voice and piano to make it jazz pop, or are there more integral components here that make it that?
That's an excellent question, because like even from the early days, people have said that she sat like right on the intersection of jazz pop, and country. But the country has always probably been the least prominent element of her music.
But when I think of Come Away With Me, I thought of it more of as a singer-songwriter adult contemporary thing, which again intersections with whatever her music is. I think at this point, genre doesn't matter as much. She's just making natural, earthy music that is hers and has been for the better part of 20 years.
Yeah, that really is where she's at with this one, and the country influence mostly just comes through slide guitar on a couple of songs on this album, and you could also say probably the very gospelish melody of To Live at least goes back to the roots of country.
Yeah.
I think that the biggest strength of this album, and again, I haven't heard everything that she's released, including her most recent output, but I did spend this week re-listening to the albums that I do have, and I think that the clearest distinction on this album is just the way that the instruments that she includes are used, and the way the parts that they play are written.
Well, they make great counterpoints to some songs, like on How I Weep, which is mainly just her voice and piano, and I think it's got a metronome as well. I don't think there's a proper percussion on that song. I think it's just a metronome, and then the string arrangements come in and like provide a counterpoint towards the end. So yeah, they're not really doing much more than that, but they're pretty good.
Yeah, just the way that the strings and horns and things punctuate the songs is different from at least what I would expect from a jazz lounge type album.
They're a little bit more daring and adventurous, creative.
Yeah, and yet at the same time, there's a very strong connection to the singer-songwriter albums of the 70s, which, like, is another thing that she's always been compared to, even in the very early, more stripped-down jazz pop days. But, like, there are songs on here that I genuinely could see as being contemporaries with, like, anything on Tapestry.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's definitely some Carol Kidd in here. Her voice is just the strongest aspect, obviously. I don't know, would you say she's got a sort of smoky, rich voice that just gracefully finds itself in the middle of these arrangements and just sounds great. These songs require a really strong voice to stand up, because some of them are really quite slow and measured and dreamy, and some of them are more got a bit more kick to them. So personally, I just think her voice is the thing that's improved, and obviously I haven't heard everything in the middle of this, so she's probably just naturally got in a more deeper, richer vocal range just from years of practice, from years of doing it. Did you have any specific favourite tracks here, Cam?
Really, any of the first three could be clear favorites for me, and then I also really loved "To Live," as I mentioned before, and
Yeah.
then "I'm Alive" and "Were You Watching." So that's like two pockets of three songs each that I think are some of the best on the album.
My favourite was actually Say No More.
Mm.
That is actually quite daring. Like, you say this album is jazz pop, which is true to some extent, you know, vocal jazz. That song, Say No More, is definitely the strongest jazz song. It has some very strong saxophone playing, accompanying her simple piano and vocal jazz setup she has going here. I don't know, that song just was the strongest to me. Flame Twin, which I think is the second track, is also really good. I'm not entirely sure what the subject matter of Flame Twin is, because I don't believe she has a twin. So it's almost like she's recounting a fantasy childhood of childhood escapades with a made-up twin. I'm not entirely sure what was going on there, but it was definitely a really good song.
That's one of those songs that it's just like it's clearly metaphorical for something, but it doesn't really matter. The words just sound great together, and I think that's the main thing that matters.
To me, it even sounded like it, if it just a little bit squinted to the side, I could maybe imagine it even on the Fiona Apple album that came out this year. I don't know why, like something alongside Shamika or something like that. So I don't know. But that was definitely the strongest, more fast-paced song. There was a little bit more kick to it. But yeah, in general, this is a really consistent, strong album.
All right, so what would you rate it?
I'll give it a 7. At this point, if you've followed Norah Jones for the last 20 years, you know what you're going to get here, and this might even be one of her strongest albums yet. Very consistent set of songs, can't really complain about anything here. If you weren't a fan of hers before, there's likely little here that's going to change your mind, but otherwise, you know, this is just quality, rich, considered music. Yeah, recommended from me.
Yep, and I'm going to give this an 8. I should have mentioned this at the beginning, but I just have a bias for piano playing female artists. Like, I just can't help it, especially when they've got the kind of smoky, sultry voice that Norah Jones has. And so just hearing the basic elements being done so well, hearing the string and horn accoutrements being more unique, at least among her discography, and just having a bunch of great songs for all those elements to enhance, you know, just makes this a really good album for this year, in my opinion.
Definitely.
All right, and that does it for us with Pick Me Up Off the Floor by Norah Jones. Thanks for tuning in to Busted Speakers, everybody. Subscribe if you want to see more of our album reviews. You can follow us on Twitter at _Busted Speakers. You can follow me on Twitter at SubProspector, and we will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.